This morning, we are going to sing our final hymn in appreciation of Pope Francis and his encyclical, which speaks to care for our common home. Pope Francis, you truly inspire us. You live your life as a shining example of your Christian faith, of how Jesus would have us live. Please join me in saying, thank you, Pope Francis. Thank you, Pope Francis.
Hear these words for our chalice lighting this morning. Fire consumes and casts a bright light. May our chalice flame consume our regrets for the past, our fears about the future, and our worries about today. May it light for us a path of joy and peace. Let us join together in our spoken affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth and freedom, and to help one another. Our opening thought comes from the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle, from his work, Nicomachean Ethics. It is well said, then, that it is by doing just acts that the just person is produced, and by doing temperate acts, the temperate person. Without doing these, no one would have even a prospect of becoming good. Our first reading also comes from Aristotle and his work, Nicomachean Ethics. The person who shuns and fears everything and stands up to nothing becomes a coward. The person who is afraid of nothing at all, but marches up to every danger, becomes foolhardy. Similarly, the person who indulges in pleasure and refrains from none becomes licentious. But if a person behaves like a boor and turns their back on every pleasure, that person is a case of insensibility. Thus, temperance and courage are destroyed by excess and deficiency and preserved by the mean. Our meditation today comes from the words of Rebecca Ann Parker and William Collins. There is love holding me. There is love holding you. There is love holding all. I rest in this love. May I be peaceful. May I be happy. May I be well. May I be safe. May I be free from suffering. May all things be peaceful. May all beings be happy. May all beings be well. May all beings be safe. May all beings be free from suffering.
Return to where you were, return to what you were, return to where you were, born and reborn again. Return.
Hi, my name is Jolene Witten, and I am a member of Red River Unitarian Universalist Church. Return Again to the Land of Your Soul was one of many songs written by Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach. Originally from Berlin, Rabbi Carlebach immigrated to the United States in 1939 when the Nazis came to power. It is easy for me to understand the significance of the song's lyrics to those who fled the Nazi regime and longed for the land of their souls. But what significance could this song possibly have for me? As it turns out, a great deal. My spiritual journey has been a long and winding one, taking many years and many twists and turns. Eventually, the journey brought me to the Red River Unitarian Universalists in Denison. When I finally arrived, I felt as though I'd found my way home. Red River UU is a place where I can continue my journey while enjoying the support of my newfound spiritual home. It feels like family. It is the place where I find the land of my soul. So, I feel I should support the church as I can, including financially through my annual stewardship pledge. It is my small part in ensuring the church remains a place for me and anyone in the North Texas area, or even anywhere at all through virtual connection, to find a place for their soul to land and feel welcome. Thanks for listening. Return again to the land of your soul.
Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul.
Our second reading this morning comes from Aristotle, from his work called Politics. Let us presuppose this much, that the best way of life, both separately for each individual and in common for cities, is that accompanied by virtue. Virtue that is equipped to such an extent as to allow them to take part in actions that accord with virtue. One way of thinking about the good life is to focus on the question, what is the goal of human life? Or what is the end or aim that we as humans should be pursuing? Philosophers who use this question as their primary approach for understanding the good life are called teleological ethicists. The most well-known philosopher who used this teleological approach was the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle, who understood that the telos, or goal of human life, is what he called eudaimonia, which is best translated as human flourishing, though sometimes it is also translated as happiness. For Aristotle, eudaimonia is the telos, or goal, of every human being, and it is attained by using our reason in the best way we possibly can to cultivate our moral and intellectual virtues as a means for living the good life as persons within a community with other persons. Aristotle believed that education is required for the cultivation of these virtues, and he thought this education included the cultivation of virtues through the practice of good habits of human living. Virtues are created through good habits, while vices are created through bad habits. Aristotle believed that good habits, or virtues, help develop a state of the soul that leads to a life of moderation between the excesses and deficiencies of bad habits or vices. Virtues are the mean between the extremes of the vices. To achieve personal human flourishing, Aristotle believed that we should use our highest function as well as we possibly can. And he believed that our highest function is reason. The good life consists, for Aristotle, of a life of study, with a few good and virtuous friends in which we learn to reason as well as we possibly can, and in which we allow our reason to rule over lower aspects of our being, such as our appetites, desires, and feelings. The good life is a life in which we develop moral and intellectual virtues. When reason rules over the lower aspects of our being, or what Aristotle saw as the lower aspects of our soul, the result is the creation of moral virtues. When we live a life of study and cultivate the best functioning of our rational abilities, the result is the development of intellectual virtues, which is basically the ability to reason well. Aristotle believed that the development and expression of both moral and intellectual virtues is necessary for true human flourishing to be experienced. Aristotle believed that humans are not isolated individuals, but rather we are social animals who require relationships with other human beings to flourish. No person is an island, and no one can be fully happy if they lack genuine and virtuous contact with other persons. Social flourishing in the good society consists of practicing the whole of virtue in relation to all other members of the human community, and working together to establish justice and harmony in the good city, or what we might call the good society. If we are virtuous in our relations with each other, we contribute to the creation of a virtuous, good, and just human community. Today, we see more than ever before that human flourishing is not only the flourishing of human persons and human community, it is also the flourishing of human persons within the larger ecological community. We know that human persons cannot flourish for long unless the ecological community of which we are all a part is also flourishing. So in addition to the personal and social flourishing that Aristotle sees as essential to eudaimonia, it is important for a teleological approach that is relevant for our time to include the necessity of ecological flourishing. For we as humans are always persons in ecological community. If human flourishing within the context of a flourishing ecological community is seen as the goal or telos of human life, then it is imperative, a moral responsibility even, for the human community to address the global challenges of peace, poverty, social justice, and sustainability that directly affect human flourishing within our ecological community. These challenges are not peripheral to the good life. They are at the very core of what promotes human flourishing. Addressing these challenges is at the very core of that which contributes to the good society within the broader ecological community. The crises of violence, injustice, poverty, and ecological devastation in our world require an urgent response from all persons, institutions, and systems within the human community. The current ways that human communities are living in the world are not sustainable, and it is our common task to contribute to finding sustainable ways of flourishing with each other within our ecological community. To borrow from Martin Luther King Jr., the urgency of now has never been greater. Each day, each year, each decade that passes without systemic change in the human community contributes to less peace, less justice, and less flourishing for present and future generations of all life. The reality of climate change and its effects on the ecological community make the need for systemic change the greatest moral challenge in human history. For we are affecting the very context in which any flourishing is even possible. Perhaps we all have something to learn from Aristotle as we attempt to develop good habits that will contribute to the virtues necessary for personal, social, and ecological flourishing. But I think that today, the practice of good habits is not only about cultivating moral and intellectual virtues, it must also be about cultivating the ecological virtues necessary to live sustainably so that future generations of all life might simply live. So let's work together. Let's work together with some good friends to practice some good ecological habits for the cultivation of ecological virtue in ourselves and in our communities. Let's make it a habit to reduce, reuse, and recycle. Let's make it a habit to walk, bike, and use mass transportation when possible. Let's make it a habit to use video conferencing to cut down on our need to burn fossil fuels in flying and driving. Let's make it a habit to get our hands in the soil, to compost and to grow some of our own food. And let's make it a habit to get as much of the rest of our food from local and organic sources. Let's make it a habit to use renewable and clean sources of energy. Let's make it a habit to march for ecological justice and become politically engaged in the work for ecological flourishing. Over time, by practicing these good ecological habits, we just might cultivate the ecological virtues within our souls that are necessary to bring a new age of ecological justice for this good earth that is our only home. May it be so.
the spirit of this child.
And we believe in life and in the strength of love, and we have found the time to be together, and with the grace of age we share the wonder of youth, and we believe that growing is an answer. Our lives are full of wonder and our time is very brief.
The death of one among us fills us all with pain and grief.
But as we live, so shall we die, and when our lives are done,
The memories we share with friends, they will linger on and on.
and we believe in life and in the strength of love, and we have found a place to be together. We have the right to grow. We have the gift to believe, and peace within our living is an answer. We seek elusive answers to the questions of this life.
We seek to put an end to all the waste of human strife.
We search for truth, equality, and blessed peace of mind.
And then we come together here to make sense of what we find.
And we believe in life and in the strength of love, and we have found the joy being together, and in our search for peace, may we finally see, even to question truly is an answer.
Our parting thought this morning comes from Maya Angelou, from her writing, The Importance of Courage. Courage is the most important of all the virtues, because without courage, you can't practice any other virtue consistently. You can practice any virtue erratically, but nothing consistently without courage. And now let us join together in the extinguishing of the chalice, saying these words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Greetings, RRUU congregation. I'm Jared Treadway, and I'm thrilled and honored to be participating in your assembly on April 18th. My life so far has been one rich with fantastic adventure, profound ecstasy, deeply crippling despair, tremendous confusion, and moments of absolute clarity. Fueled by an inexhaustible inner pressure, in 2012, I set out on a spiritual journey that has led to conversations with New Thought spiritual teachers, deep contemplations on ancient wisdom teachings, and perhaps most importantly, to a direct acknowledgement of the depth and breadth of my whole self. Through my experience, I've come to an awareness of underlying universal principles that shape our reality. We are in a time of tremendous personal mutation and global evolution, and we're offered a chance to remember who we really are, and to embody universal principles totally in each delicious moment of life. I'm looking forward to being with you on the 18th.